Some things on the internet are not meant to be found. They lurk in the shadows, waiting.
If you're hearing this, then I failed to keep the upside down buried. That means whatever I brought back with me has already found its way into the cracks of this world, the quiet spaces where no one thinks to look. I don't know how much time I have, and I don't know if you should even listen to this, but I can't carry it alone anymore. I woke up on cold ground that wasn't quite solid and wasn't quite air. The sky above me looked like someone had spilled ink across the stars, thick and heavy, swallowing every bit of light. It felt like the upside down, but wrong in a way I can't fully explain. Not louder, not more violent, just calmer. And that terrified me more than any screaming monster ever could. There was a sound behind me, soft and wet, like something breathing through mud. I didn't turn at first. I stayed still, counting my heartbeats, pretending I was still safe in my bed back in Hawkins, pretending this was just another nightmare I'd wake up from. But nightmares don't smell like rust and rot. They don't make the air feel alive, like it's watching you breathe. When I finally looked, I saw a movement where there should have been nothing. A shape folding into itself, sliding across the darkness like it didn't need legs or wings or claws. It didn't rush me. It didn't roar. It just watched, and somehow that felt worse than any attack. You've heard the stories. We all have. About gates and monsters and brave kids who saved the world. But what I saw that night wasn't part of any story you know. There are things even the heroes never found. Things they were never meant to. I tried to scream, but my voice stayed trapped in my chest. I remember thinking that if I died there, no one would ever know what really lives beyond the upside down. And maybe that was the point, because some truths aren't hidden. They're buried, and I was never supposed to dig them up. If you think this is just another creepy story, I don't blame you. That's what I told myself too. Back when fear still felt like entertainment instead of a warning. But listen to me closely. What happened to me is not over. It's not contained in some shadow world. It's leaking quietly, patiently, into places you already trust. Into bedrooms, schools, empty roads at night. And once you start noticing the signs, you'll realize how long it's been watching all of us. You just never noticed it before now, and that matters. 3 weeks earlier, none of this had started yet. 3 weeks earlier, my biggest problem was whether I would survive another day of Mr. Callahan's math class without falling asleep and getting called out in front of everyone. Life in Hawkins had finally settled into something that almost felt normal again. The sirens were gone. The curfews were lifted. The rumors faded into background noise people only brought up when they wanted to sound interesting at parties. My name doesn't really matter. I learned that the hard way later. Back then, I was just another kid trying to get through school with a small group of friends who felt more like family than anything else. There was Jake, who thought he was funnier than he actually was. Maya, who pretended she hated everyone but secretly cared more than any of us. And me, stuck in the middle, trying to pretend I didn't still flinch every time the lights flickered. We spent our afternoons riding bikes, complaining about homework, and arguing over which old arcade game was better. Sometimes we joked about the upside down, the way people joke about ghosts when they're standing in broad daylight. It felt safe to laugh at it. Safe to turn something terrifying into a story you could control. We all agreed on one thing. We thought the upside down was over. That was our first mistake. Hawkins looked peaceful on the surface. The stores were open again. The school halls were loud. Parents stopped checking the locks twice before bed. Even the woods felt less threatening, like they had forgotten how to keep secrets. Every day felt like proof that the nightmare had finally burned itself out. I remember one afternoon sitting on the steps outside the school, watching clouds drift by and thinking how boring everything felt. I actually missed the excitement. I missed having something to talk about that made life feel bigger than tests and chores. I didn't know how cruel that thought would turn out to be. That evening, I went home and found my mom watching some cooking show, laughing like nothing in the world could touch us. I grabbed a snack, flopped onto the couch, and let myself believe we were safe. Truly safe. For the first time in a long time, I slept without dreams. The next morning started just as normal. The sun came up. My alarm went off. I nearly missed the bus. Everything felt ordinary right up until the moment I heard it. A sound I couldn't place. Not loud. Not close. Just wrong. It came from somewhere behind the houses, deep in the trees, like a long breath being pulled through something broken. I stopped walking. The street was quiet. No one else seemed to notice. I stood there longer than I should have, telling myself it was just my imagination, that fear was a habit I needed to unlearn. But habits never disappear quietly. That's when I realized the calm wasn't peace. It started with something so small, I almost convinced myself it never happened. In first period, the old radio in our classroom crackled to life for no reason, spilling out a burst of static so sharp it made everyone flinch. Mr. Callahan smacked the side of it and laughed, blaming bad wiring, but I could swear I heard something under the noise. Not words. Breathing. By lunchtime, the air in the hallway outside the science lab smelled like rot. Not garbage. Not spoiled food. Something damp and old, like a basement that had been locked for decades. People wrinkled their noses and walked faster, joking about dead rats in the walls. I stayed behind for a second too long, staring at the shadows pooling under the lockers, convinced one of them shifted when I blinked. That was the day Tommy Reed told everyone he saw something crawling on the ceiling in the boys' bathroom. He said it moved like a spider but didn't have legs, just long bends in its body that dragged across the tiles. The whole table burst out laughing. Jake nearly choked on his fries. Someone asked Tommy if he'd finally lost his mind. I laughed too. I had to. That's what you do when fear shows up wearing a ridiculous mask. But later, when I walked past the bathroom alone, I saw the ceiling tile he pointed to. It was cracked down the middle, as if something heavy had pressed against it from above. A thin line of dark moisture ran down the wall beneath it. I stood there longer than I should have, listening to the hum of the lights, telling myself I was being dramatic. Then I heard it again. That soft, wet sound, like breath through mud. I didn't see anything move this time. I didn't need to. My body already knew what my brain refused to accept. This was the moment I should have run. This was the moment I should have told someone and refused to be alone. Instead, I went to my next class and pretended the world made sense. That night, I tried to forget it all. I played video games, scrolled through my phone, laughed at videos until my eyes hurt. But when the house went quiet and the lights went out, the smell came back in my dreams. Rust. Mold. Something alive pretending to be dead. The next day, Maya pulled me aside before school. She looked pale, like she hadn't slept. She whispered that her dog wouldn't go near the shed anymore. Just stood at the edge of the yard, whining at the door like it could hear something inside. That's when I started paying attention to the places no one ever looked. The gaps between buildings. The old storm drains. The sealed door behind the gym that everyone forgot about. I didn't know it yet, but the first sign something was. Wrong wasn't the radio, or the smell, or the story about the ceiling. I found it 3 days after Tommy's story about the ceiling, in a place I had walked past 100 times without ever really seeing. Behind the gym, past the rusted bleachers and the weeds no one bothered to cut, there was a narrow service corridor the school used to store broken equipment. At least, that's what everyone thought it was. I thought it was too, until I noticed the wall at the very end didn't look like a wall at all. It looked like a door pretending to be one. The paint was newer than everything around it, a dull gray that didn't quite match the bricks. No handle, no sign, just a faint outline where something had been sealed shut on purpose. My heart started doing that stupid fast thing it always did when I knew I was about to make a bad decision. I waited until after school, when the halls were empty and the air felt thick with that strange, rotten smell again. I pressed my ear against the surface. For a second, I thought I heard nothing. Then there it was, a low vibration, like something humming far away underground. I don't know what I expected to find behind that door. Old pipes, a forgotten storage room, maybe even nothing at all. What I didn't expect were the marks. The door wasn't locked. It wasn't even stuck. It opened like it had been waiting. Inside was a narrow passage that sloped downward, the air colder with every step. My phone flashlight caught strange symbols carved into the walls. Not graffiti, not words, more like warnings drawn by someone who ran out of time. Deeper in, I saw scratches that looked too deep to be made by any tool. Long, uneven lines, like claws dragged slowly across the concrete. There were papers scattered along the floor, half rotted but still readable. Reports, diagrams, names that meant nothing to me except one. Brenner. If you're listening to this and expecting something you've seen on TV, stop right here. You won't find this in the official story. There are files that even Dr. Brenner erased, things buried so deep they weren't meant to be uncovered by kids sneaking around after school. One of the pages described the upside down as a secondary phase, not the beginning. Another talked about layers, about doors that don't open unless someone on the other side wants them to. My hands shook as I flipped through the rest. This wasn't history. It was a warning that came too late. I stood there longer than I should have, listening to the quiet pulse of that place, feeling like I was standing inside a secret that could ruin everything if it ever got out. I thought about telling someone, a teacher, the police, anyone older, anyone smarter. But something in me knew that the moment I reported it, the door would disappear again, sealed forever, and the truth would vanish with it. All the way home, I felt like someone was walking just behind me, close enough that I could almost hear their footsteps echoing mine. Every shadow looked thicker, heavier, like it was holding its breath. I kept thinking about those papers and the way they talked about doors that wanted to be opened. Maybe finding that place wasn't an accident. Maybe I had been chosen somehow. So I made the worst decision of my life. I stepped back into the hallway, closed the door behind me, and decided I would come. Maya was the only one I told about the door. Not because she was the bravest, but because she was the only one who wouldn't laugh. She listened while I explained everything. The smell, the symbols, the papers with names that should have stayed buried. She didn't interrupt me once. When I finished, she just said one thing. Then we have to see it. We went back the next evening, just as the sun was bleeding out behind the trees. The corridor felt colder than before, like the building itself was trying to warn us away. I pushed the door open, and for a second nothing happened. No monsters, no screams, just silence so deep it felt heavy on my ears. We stepped inside. The air changed instantly. It wasn't the sharp, burning cold I expected. It was dull, hollow, like the warmth had been drained from the world and never replaced. The passage stretched farther than it had before, the walls darker, the symbols glowing faintly like they were remembering light. That's when I realized we weren't just behind the school anymore. We were somewhere else. It wasn't the upside down the stories talk about. No storms of ash. No screaming creatures charging out of the dark. This place was quieter, smarter. It felt like walking into a room where someone had just stopped talking. Maya grabbed my sleeve and whispered that she felt watched. I laughed under my breath, trying to sound calm, but I felt it too. Not eyes. Attention. Like something had noticed us the way you notice an ant crawling across your desk. Not important enough to crush, but too strange to ignore. We kept walking because turning back felt harder than going forward. The deeper we went, the more wrong everything looked. Familiar shapes from Hawkins appeared in twisted echoes. A school hallway made of bone. A playground swing hanging from nothing, gently moving even though there was no wind. My stomach tightened with every step. That's when we heard the sound behind us. Not footsteps, not breathing. A slow dragging noise, steady and patient, like something pulling itself across the floor without any hurry at all. I told myself not to run. I told myself if we stayed calm, we would be fine. But fear doesn't listen to logic. Maya squeezed my hand once, and we both started backing away. That's when we saw it. Not a monster in the way you imagine. No teeth snapping. No claws reaching. Just a tall shape standing at the far end of the passage, its outline shifting like smoke trapped inside a body. It didn't move toward us. It leaned, like it was curious. That was the moment I understood this wasn't the same upside down everyone thought they knew. This place didn't hunt. It studied. The dragging sound got closer. The air felt heavier, pressing down on my chest. I grabbed Maya's arm and whispered that we had to go, now, before whatever was watching decided we were worth more than a glance. We ran. The passage behind us stretched, warped, trying to hold us in. The door felt farther away than it should have been, like the world was pulling it back on purpose. I could hear something moving behind us now, not rushing, not chasing, just following at a distance that felt deliberate. When we finally burst through the doorway and slammed it shut, we collapsed on the cold floor, gasping like we had just escaped from underwater. The next morning, I tried to tell someone. Anyone. My voice shook the way it always did when I said something too big to be true. I started with my mom, keeping it as simple as possible. There's something behind the gym, I said, hoping she'd understand without me sounding insane. She laughed, the kind of laugh that's supposed to soothe you but only makes you feel smaller. Behind the gym? What? Like a secret club. You've been reading too many of those horror stories again. I tried to explain the symbols, the papers, the claw marks. She shook her head, cutting me off. I don't know what you're imagining, honey, but you need to focus on school, not ghosts. I left her house frustrated, feeling more alone than I ever had. If my own parents didn't believe me, who would? Jake was next. I cornered him in the arcade after school, the neon lights flickering like bad electricity. It's real, I said, almost yelling over the pinball machines. I saw it. Maya saw it. There's a... He cut me off with a smirk. You mean the upside down again? Come on, man. Even the heroes dealt with that stuff years ago. You're not going to find a second layer in Hawkins. I wanted to scream. That's when Maya grabbed my shoulder and whispered so no one else could hear. Listen, I believe you. I turned to her, heart thudding. You actually believe me? She nodded. I've been reading some of those old files you found. There's a theory, something called the second gate. Supposedly, it's deeper than anything Hawkins has seen. Most people think it's a myth. I swallowed hard. The second gate? Yes. It's supposed to connect worlds differently. The upside down we know, it's just a surface layer. If the second gate opens, nothing we've seen yet will prepare us. Her voice was almost too calm, but I felt the weight of it settle like ice in my chest. Why are you telling me this now? I asked. Because someone has to know. And you've already been there, she said, her eyes darting to the shadows along the alley. If you don't act, I don't think the first layer is going to be the worst thing we face. We didn't speak again until we were safely inside her room. Then we pored over every scrap of paper, every note, every fragment of research I had snuck out of that corridor. The air smelled faintly of mildew, and the shadows in her room seemed to lean closer as we worked. We discovered sketches, diagrams, and cryptic messages that hinted at forces manipulating the Upside Down. There were references to the second gate, warnings about what would happen if anyone tried to cross it, and notes so old I doubted anyone alive had read them before. It was all secret, forbidden, and terrifying. As I traced my finger over the faded ink, I felt a strange thrill of dread. The more we uncovered, the less I wanted to tell anyone else. They would laugh. They would panic. They would never survive understanding what we were starting to grasp. But Maya looked at me, eyes wide. "We have to keep going," she whispered. "Even if no one else believes us. Even if it kills us." That was the moment I realized the truth wasn't just something to warn people about. It was something we had to confront ourselves. And nothing we were about to uncover would ever be ordinary again. Maya and I spent hours in her room, surrounded by the scraps of paper, diagrams, and photographs I'd brought from the corridor. Every sheet seemed older than the last, written in careful, looping script or printed in faded type that smelled of mildew and ink. The kind of stuff that shouldn't exist. The kind that screamed someone had gone to great lengths to erase it. "They never wanted you to know this," Maya whispered, pointing to a stack of files marked confidential, beyond observation. I felt a chill crawl up my spine. She was right. Every page we unfolded revealed secrets hidden from even the people who were supposed to protect us. The first thing we noticed was how the Upside Down bent time. There were reports showing that a single hour inside one of its layers could equal days or weeks outside. People who went missing returned changed, memories bleeding in strange directions, repeating events they hadn't experienced yet, or forgetting the moments that had defined them. One sketch showed a clock melting into black ink, lines twisting backward and forward at once. I shivered, imagining what it would do to a person if they weren't prepared. "We can't just go back there," I muttered. We won't be the same." Maya didn't answer immediately. She was studying the next sheet. It described entities older than anything we'd heard of, older than Vecna. Their influence wasn't brute force. It was subtle, pervasive. It shaped the world, bending events and perceptions, watching everyone and everything. The notes called them custodians, though no one had ever recorded a physical description. They existed everywhere and nowhere, waiting for someone to make the wrong move. "They control it," Maya whispered. "Not the monsters. Not the kids who go missing. Them." I traced the notes with trembling fingers. There were rules. The custodians set to keep their domains intact. One of them stated that crossing certain thresholds without consent could fracture reality, bleed shadows into the real world. Another explained that memories could be stolen or replaced, leaving victims unaware of the changes. Another said a shadow's behavior could indicate intent. Patience was a sign of observation, chaos a sign of enforcement. Every rule we read made my stomach tighten. Every line was a warning disguised as science. The more we understood, the more dangerous it became to exist without knowing them. It felt like opening a book no human was meant to read, watching the lines crawl across the page, pulling you deeper into a story you weren't supposed to finish. At one point, Maya pointed to a sketch showing two parallel hallways with arrows connecting them. "Look," she said, her voice low. "It's not just another layer. It's like they can duplicate reality itself. And if someone crosses at the wrong time, they could trap themselves, or something else, forever." I swallowed hard. I wanted to leave the papers, burn them, forget it all. But the thrill of knowing the truth, the sick fascination of seeing the world under its veneer of safety, kept me glued to the desk. We had just started deciphering a page labeled temporal convergence, describing a layer where time, memory, and consciousness overlapped when it happened. A loud crack echoed from the corner of the room. Not a sound from outside, not the floorboard settling. Something shifted. A shadow moved across the papers in a way that shouldn't have been possible. One of the rules, bold, underlined, flashed in my memory. Never disturb a boundary without acknowledgement the boundary had been broken. I froze. Maya's eyes met mine, wide and unblinking. And in that instant, I understood that knowing the rules wasn't enough. Following them was the only thing that mattered. IT happened the night we were going over the files again. Jake had joined us, skeptical at first, but eventually curious enough to poke around the edges of the forbidden papers. He was joking, trying to lighten the mood, making ridiculous ghost hunter impressions until he stopped laughing. I remember the moment clearly. We were all clustered around a page detailing a rule about shadows bleeding through thresholds, and Jake leaned back, stretching his arms. Then he just disappeared. 1 second he was there, laughing at his own terrible joke. The next, nothing. No scream, no movement, no portal, no crack in the air. The room didn't change. The shadows didn't flicker. He was gone. We called his name until our voices cracked. Maya and I tore through the house, the street, even the woods behind her house. Nothing. No sign of him. No footprints. No sound. Nothing. It was like he had been erased, as though the world itself had swallowed him whole. I sank to the floor, clutching the papers, trying to convince myself it was some trick of the mind, some stress-induced hallucination. But Maya wasn't crying yet. She was staring at me with wide eyes, whispering, "It's happening. It's reaching out." Reaching out. That's when it clicked. The upside down no longer needed a gate, a door, or even a passage hidden in the walls of Hawkins. It could reach in on its own. It was patient, invisible, waiting for the perfect moment to take what it wanted. And Jake had been careless. Or maybe unlucky. Or maybe he had been chosen. I thought about him lying somewhere in that other layer, aware of us, but unable to move. The files hinted that consciousness could persist across these boundaries, stretched thin and twisted, memories bleeding like ink in water. I imagined him seeing us, screaming, trapped in a world where the rules didn't make sense, where time and space bent around something older than anything we knew. That thought made my chest tighten. Maya touched my arm, bringing me back. "We can't just sit here," she whispered. "He's not gone for good. He's caught between layers. We have to find him before." Her voice trailed off, but I knew what she meant. Before the upside down claimed him entirely, before he became a part of it. I stared at the door behind the gym in my mind, imagining it waiting. Cold, silent, patient. The one we had stepped through. The one that had already changed the way we thought about reality. I knew what I had to do. We had to go back in. Even though every instinct screamed at me not to. Even though the thought of what waited on the other side made my stomach churn with fear. Because if we didn't, Jake would be lost forever, and the upside down would be free to reach even further. No gates required, no warnings given. I took a deep breath, clenching the files, and whispered to Maya, "We go back tonight. We find him, whatever it takes." And in that moment, I realized it wasn't just a story anymore. It was real. It was happening. And the only way to fight it was to step into the darkness willingly. We went back after midnight, when Hawkins pretends to sleep but never really does. The door behind the gym opened like it remembered us, the air inside colder than the night outside. Maya walked first this time. I followed, carrying Jake's name in my head like a prayer I wasn't sure anyone could hear. The moment we crossed, the world shifted again. Not the violent flip I expected, It felt more like sinking into water that was just a little too deep. This layer of the upside down was darker than the last, but not emptier. It was full of echoes, shadows stacked on shadows, as if reality had been copied and then erased in the wrong order. We walked through a version of our street that made my chest hurt. The same houses, the same trees, but everything leaned, warped, like it had grown tired of standing straight. My old bike lay rusted in the road, its chain fused into the pavement. A swing from the park creaked slowly, even though there was no wind to move it. "This feels wrong," Maya whispered. I nodded, unable to speak. These were places where I had laughed, where I had felt safe. Now they looked like memories that had gone bad. Then we heard the voices. At first, I thought it was just the wind, until I recognized the sound of my mom calling my name. Not shouting, not panicking, just the way she used to call me in for dinner, soft and patient. Maya froze beside me. "That's not possible," she whispered. "She's at home." But the voice drifted closer, joined by others. Teachers, neighbors, kids from school, people who were still alive, still breathing somewhere in the real world, now echoing through this place like ghosts who didn't know they were dead. I felt my throat tighten. If this place could copy our voices, what else could it take? We followed the sound deeper into the twisted version of town, moving past buildings that looked like they had been stitched together by someone who had never seen the real thing. Every step felt heavier, like the ground itself was trying to slow us down. That's when I heard it. Not a voice from my world. Something else. A whisper that slid through the air like smoke. It said my name. Not the way my mom said it. Not the way my friends did. It said it like it had been waiting a long time to use it. I turned in circles, my heart hammering, trying to see where it came from. The shadows shifted, thickening around us. "You hear that?" I asked. Maya nodded slowly. "It knows you." The whisper came again, closer this time. I couldn't make out the words, only the intent behind them. Curiosity, recognition, like I was no longer just an intruder. I was a subject. We reached what used to be the town square, now collapsed into a pit of blackened earth. At the center stood a shape I recognized from the files. Tall, still, watching, not a monster that attacked. My pulse roared in my ears. This was it, the thing behind the rules, the one that let the monsters hunt while it observed. I took a step forward before fear could stop me. "If you took Jake," I said, my voice shaking, "then bring him back." The air around us tightened, like the world had leaned in to listen. The whisper returned, clearer now, brushing against my thoughts instead of my ears. Maya squeezed my hand, and for a second I felt the world hold its breath, like the darkness was waiting to see what I would do next. And I realized this wasn't just a rescue mission anymore. It was the beginning of a confrontation I wasn't ready for. It didn't move the way any monster I'd seen before moved. No claws, no snapping jaws, no frenzied lurching. It stood in the center of the hollowed square, as if the darkness itself had taken form. And yet, I knew it was watching, not with eyes, but with thought, with intention. "Who are you?" I asked, my voice cracking, though I could feel Maya trembling behind me. There was no reply at first, just a quiet hum in the air, vibrating against my chest, a presence that felt heavier than gravity. Then it spoke, calm, not through lips or teeth, but inside my mind, like someone had opened a door straight into my skull. "Hawkins is the beginning," it said. Each word came slowly, measured. A test, a small experiment zone. You exist on the surface, unaware. Beneath, beyond, there are many layers, many worlds, and each is watching, waiting. I swallowed hard, trying to make sense of it. "You mean this isn't just Hawkins? Not just the upside down we know?" "It is not what you have been told," it replied. The layer you call the upside down is a fragment, a shadow of something larger. It spreads quietly. It reaches where you think safety exists. You have already carried it with you. Maya gripped my arm. I could feel her fear radiating through me, mirroring my own. I realized then that this thing, whatever it was, wasn't here to attack. It was here to observe, to assess, and maybe to teach a lesson we were not ready for. You see, it continued, its presence calm, almost soothing. Rules exist, yes. Boundaries, gates, but you believe them to be rigid. They are suggestions. Fractures in space and thought are fluid. You trespass, and yet the world does not collapse. You survive, you learn, and through your learning, the spread continues. I wanted to run, to scream, to collapse, but the air pressed against me like a living hand. It was patience that terrified me more than teeth ever could. The way it waited, unhurried, knowing the fear in me without needing to provoke it. "What do you want from us?" I whispered, my words trembling. "Nothing," it said. "Not yet. You are a witness. You are a carrier. And soon, you will understand that what you saw in Hawkins is only the surface. There are many more zones, many more experiments, many more shadows. The world is larger than you imagine, and it will change." I realized then that we were not just in danger. The upside down wasn't contained. It wasn't just a local anomaly. Its reach was global, creeping into spaces no one had looked at yet. Every missing person, every strange echo, every unexplained event. This thing had orchestrated, or at least permitted, with quiet patience. We didn't wait for more. I grabbed Maya's hand, and we ran. Every step echoed unnaturally, the walls stretching as if the layer itself was reluctant to let us go. Behind us, I felt the entity's awareness brushing against my mind, patient, unhurried, letting us flee for now. When we finally crossed back through the doorway into the familiar school corridor, the air felt warmer, normal, safe. But something inside me had crossed over with us. A shadow of awareness. A whisper that would not leave. That be why the time I understood it, the pieces fit together in a way that made my stomach twist. The upside down isn't a place. Not really. It's not a pocket dimension, not a separate world hiding behind our own. It's a mirror, a reflection of our reality, one that isn't content to stay hidden. Every step we've taken, every crossing, every lingering shadow has made it seep closer. It starts subtly, a flicker in the corner of your eye, a sound in the hallway when no one is there, a smell you can't place. We thought it was local, something strange happening in Hawkins, something contained. We were wrong. It spreads like ink in water, layer upon layer blending with ours, rewriting what you think is real. I remember looking back at the corridors we had crossed. Familiar streets twisted into impossible geometry, playgrounds warped, houses leaning as if gravity had forgotten them. And then I realized, every crossing, every experiment, every curiosity had allowed the two worlds to touch. They were bleeding together, folding into each other, reshaping life into a reflection that wasn't ours. People call it the upside down because it's frightening, but it's not upside. It's over. It's beneath, beside, inside. A mirror of our choices, our fears, our mistakes. Every time someone enters, even unknowingly, they carry a thread between realities. And every thread strengthens the weave, makes the reflection stronger, more persistent, until one day, if unchecked, it could replace us entirely. I can't tell you how many times we thought we had returned safely, but the moment we stepped through, we were changed. Not just in memory or body, but in the way we existed. You can feel it if you know where to look. A shadow that moves wrong, a voice that shouldn't belong to anyone alive, a door that shouldn't be there. And here's the part that terrifies me most. This isn't confined to Hawkins. It's already begun elsewhere. Every day, the mirror grows closer. Inch by inch, mind by mind. By the time you realize it, the reflection won't be subtle anymore. You'll see it in the streets, in your home, in the people you trust. The world you think you know, my God, the world you think is yours, is already blending with something else. We've crossed, we've carried it, and now, unknowingly, so might you. This isn't a story about monsters. Not really. It's a story about the space between what we see and what exists. A warning you may already be too late to heed, because the upside down isn't coming. It's already here that I need you to understand something before this ends. I'm running out of time. Every hour, every second I spend writing, recording, thinking about what's happening, the upside down spreads a little further. It's not patient anymore. The threads between our world and its mirror are taut, ready to snap, and every crossing, every curiosity, every story like mine makes it stronger. If you're hearing this, it may already be too late. That doesn't mean you won't survive, but it does mean you need to pay attention. Look at the corners of your rooms. Listen to the silence between sounds. Question the way shadows move. That's where it starts. The first signs that the reflection has found its way in. I'm telling you this because I couldn't stop it. Because keeping it buried, like I promised I would, was a lie. And because someone has to know. Someone has to be aware before the threads tighten so much that we can't tell the real from the mirrored. I don't know if anyone will believe me. Maybe you'll dismiss this as another story, another horror tale about Hawkins or monsters you've already seen on TV. But if you're feeling the weight of these words, if you feel the cold brush of something in your room as you read this, then believe it. It's real, and it's closer than you think. Maya isn't here to warn you anymore. Jake, I don't even want to imagine what has become of him. And I can't go back through that door again. Not alone, not lick. Leave something behind. Something you can use. A record, a confession, a warning, a map of where not to step. I wish I could end this with reassurance. I wish I could tell you that the upside down is still far away, still a story for someone else. But it isn't. And if you're hearing this, that means it's watching you already. So listen carefully. Learn from what I've seen. Protect what you can. And never, ever assume that a shadow is just a shadow. Because some shadows are waiting that I thought I was alone. I thought I had enough time to finish this, to leave a warning that might save someone, anyone. But I hear it now. Soft, almost gentle. Not in my ears, but inside my head, curling around my thoughts like smoke. A door creaks behind me. Not one of the doors I know. Not one I remember seeing. And the air has shifted. The cold presses in, heavy, deliberate. My hands shake, the camera trembling as I fumble to keep it steady. A sound rises from the corner of the room. A whisper, just a breath, but it carries weight. It says my name, and then something else. Words I don't recognize, impossible syllables that twist around my mind. I try to speak, to tell you that it's just a shadow, just a story, but it steps closer. The light flickers. The papers scatter. I hear it moving behind me, patient, curious, inevitable. And then silence. The camera tilts. The image shivers. One last breath escapes before the feed cuts out completely. No warning. No scream. Just the cold echo of something from the other side, lingering even as the screen dies. If you're watching this, I don't know what to tell you. Maybe you'll think it's over. Maybe you'll dismiss it. Maybe the upside down has already seen you too. I don't know if this is the last recording. I don't know if anyone will ever find it. But if you did watch closely, listen carefully, because some doors never stay closed, and some shadows never leave.